Śrīmad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya, Asto Tarasata Śrī Śrīmad, His Divine Grace, Śrīla Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki jai. Pranjigo Śrī Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityaṁ Śrī Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta ki jai. Śrī Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shaimakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Mayapur Navadvip Dham ki jai. Ganga Maya ki jai. Jamuna Maya ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan Jaggi ki jai. Śrīla Prabhupada's transcendental book distribution ki jai. Tampa ISKCON Sangha ki jai. Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, Shri Shri Guru and Duranga. Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, Hare Kṛṣṇa, dear worshipable devotees, thank you so much for tuning in, for those who are joining from Zoom, and for those who are also present physically. So we are very grateful that today we have His Grace Anuttama Prabhu with us, who is going to speak Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class. And we're also very grateful to His Grace Vipul Prabhu and Sujoya Mataji for hosting this wonderful program. And along with His Grace Anuttama Prabhu, we have Her Grace Rukmini Mataji. Welcome, Mataji. We're so blessed to have your association. And also we have His Grace Ramya Prabhu and Ananta Mataji, also from Alachua. So let's welcome all the wonderful disciples of Srila Prabhupada. And they are, His Grace Anuttama Prabhu is also the GBC, coming all the way from Washington, DC, to give his holy association to all of us and bless us with Krishna Katha, with Kirtan, with the blessings. So let's welcome with 3 times loudly chanting, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much for your time.
I feel especially blessed today because in order to provide a comfortable seat, I've been given a back support. So I have these 2 wonderful Vaishnavas offering their support to me today. So I feel especially empowered to be able to maybe say some nice words in glorification of the Lord. Om Namo Bhagavate-Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate-Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate-Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So first I just want to say how grateful Rukmini and I are to be able to come and associate with the voice in Tampa, especially opening your nice home to us. And my only wish for the devotees who may be watching online is in the not too distant future, all of the health challenges of COVID will be gone, so we all can come together in a large group, and all of them can have the mercy of the wonderful South Indian and Bengali prasadam we had for breakfast today. So it's something that we can share a little kitab, but unfortunately technology is not there. We can't share the prasadam. So hopefully everyone at their homes also made a nice offering to the Lord this morning and were inspired by the prasadam that you've been given. So I was going to read today from the section of the first canto, chapter 6. It's one of my favorite parts of the Bhagavatam, and it's also one of my favorite lessons. And I think it's appropriate for us to read and hear a little bit about this. It's kind of along the lines. We had another program last evening, and we were discussing, of course, what we always discuss, Krishna's mercy and our relationship with Krishna and the process of bhakti. So this story of Narad Muni particularly illustrates how he became such a great devotee. I'm going to read from the section where Vyasadeva, who was facing his own challenges is inspired by Narad Muni and asks him, tell me your story of how you became such an exalted spiritual master and how Krishna manifested his mercy for you. So this is Narada telling in a condensed form his own story. And then I'll read just one purport near the end, and then we'll have a little conversation after that. I'll share some thoughts and some questions. So I'll just read the first verse. Do you have like the technology, you put verses on the screen and all that? So should we do it in a call and response fashion, like we would do if we were face to face, or what do you normally do?
Sure, we can do that.
Can you pull up 165? I should have given you the warning ahead of time.
I got it.
You got it already? My goodness.
They can see, but we can't see.
Okay, you can do it from memory though.
Maybe you can join the Zoom and just without audio.
No, this is
Yeah, mic on.
So that's wonderful. You can pull you're the right man handling the technology. You can do that so quickly. Okay, so this is again Canto 1, Chapter 6. It is entitled Conversation Between Narada and Vyasadeva, beginning with text number 5. So we'll do 5 and then I'll read a whole series of them. So please repeat after me. Narada Uvacha.
Narada Uvacha.
Bhikshubhir Vipravasite.
Bhikshubhir Vipravasite.
Jnana Deshtribhir Mama.
Vijnana Drishtibhir Mama.
Vartamano Vyasya Dye.
Vartamano Vyasadye.
Tata Etadakardasham.
Tata Etadekasham.
Narada Uvacha.
Narada Uvacha.
Bhikshubhir Vipravasite.
Bhikshubhir Vipravasite.
Vijnana Deshtribhir Mama.
Vijnana Drishtibhir Mama.
Vartamano Vyavasyadye.
Vartamano Vyasadye.
Tato Etadakardasham.
Tata Etadakasham.
Narada Uvacha.
Narada Uvacha.
Bhikshubhir Vipravasite.
Bhikshubhir Vipravasite.
Vijnana Deshtribhir Mama.
Vijnana Drishtibhir Mama.
Vartamano Vyayasyadye.
Vartamano Vyasadye.
Tata Etadakardasham.
Tata Etadakasham.
Someone like to chant?
Narada Uvacha.
Narada Uvacha.
Bhikshubhir Vipravasite.
Bhikshubhir Vipravasite.
Vijnana Deshtribhir Mama.
Vijnana Deshtribhir Mama.
Vartamana Vyasasyadye.
Vartamano Vyasasyadye.
Tata Etadakardasham.
Tata Etadakardasham. Very good. One of the ladies might chant. Okay, you go ahead, Prabhu. Sorry.
Narada Uvacha.
Narada Uvacha.
Bhikshubhir Vipravasite.
Bhikshubhir Vipravasite.
Vijnana Deshtribhir Mama.
Vijnana Deshtribhir Mama.
Vartamano Vyasadye.
Vartamano Vyasasyadye.
Tata Etadakardasham.
Tata Etadakardasham. Vaishnavis.
Narada Uvacha.
Narada Uvacha.
Bhikshubhir Vipravasite.
Bhikshubhir Vipravasite.
Vijnana Deshtribhir Mama.
Vijnana Drishtibhir Mama.
Vartamano Vyayasyadye.
Vartamano Vyasadye.
Tata Etadakardasham.
Tata Etadakasham.
Narada Uvacha.
Narada Uvacha.
Bhikshubhir Vipravasite.
Bhikshubhir Vipravasite.
Vijnana Deshtribhir Mama.
Vijnana Drishtibhir Mama.
Vartamano Vyasasyadye.
Vartamano Vyasadye. Tata Etadakasham.
So I'm going to read a series of verses, so I'll just go right to the translation. Sri Narada said, the great sages who had imparted scientific knowledge of transcendence to me, departed for other places, and I had to pass my life in this way. So that's text 5, and then I'll read a whole series here. I was the only son of my mother, who was not only a simple woman, but a maidservant as well. Since I was her only offspring, she had no other alternative for protection. She bound me with the tie of affection. She wanted to look after my maintenance properly, but because she was not independent, she was not able to do anything for me. The world is under the control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, everyone is like a wooden doll in the hands of a puppet master. When I was a mere child of 5 years, I lived in a Brahmana school. I was dependent on my mother's affection and had no experience of different lands. Once upon a time, my poor mother, when going out one night to milk a cow, was bitten on the leg by a serpent, influenced by supreme time. I took this as the special mercy of the Lord, who always desires benediction for his devotees. And so thinking, I started for the north. After my departure, I passed through many flourishing metropolises, towns, villages, animal farms, mines, agricultural lands, valleys, flower gardens, nursery gardens, and natural forests. I passed through hills and mountains full of reservoirs of various minerals like gold, silver, and copper, and through tracts of land with reservoirs of water filled with beautiful lotus flowers, fit for the denizens of heaven, decorated with bewildered bees and singing birds. I then passed alone through many forests of rushes, bamboos, reeds, sharp grass, weeds, and caves, which were very difficult to go through alone. I visited deep, dark, and dangerously fearful forests, which were the play yards of snakes, owls, and jackals. Thus traveling, I felt tired, both bodily and mentally, and I was both thirsty and hungry. So I took a bath in a river lake and also drank water. By contacting water, I got relief from my exhaustion. After that, in the shadow of a banyan tree, in an uninhabited forest, I began to meditate upon the super soul situated within, using my intelligence as I had learned from liberated souls. As soon as I began to meditate upon the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, with my mind transformed in transcendental love, tears rolled down my eyes, and without delay, the personality of Godhead, Śrī Caitanya, appeared on the lotus of my heart. O Vyasadeva, at that time, being exceedingly overpowered by feelings of happiness, every part of my body became separately enlivened. Being absorbed in an ocean of ecstasy, I could not see both myself and the Lord. The transcendental form of the Lord, as it is, satisfies the mind's desire and at once erases all mental incongruities. Upon losing that form, I suddenly got up, being perturbed, as is usual when one loses that which is desirable. So he had the meditation, he had the vision of the Lord, but then that disappeared. As he says, it was lost. I desired to see again that transcendental form of the Lord, but despite my attempts to concentrate upon the heart with eagerness to view the form again, I could not see him anymore, and thus dissatisfied, I was very much aggrieved. Seeing my attempts in that lonely place, the personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to all mundane description, spoke to me with gravity and pleasing words, just to mitigate my grief. O Narada, the Lord spoke, I regret that during this lifetime you will not be able to see me anymore. Those who are incomplete in service and who are not completely free from all material taints can hardly see me. O virtuous one, you have only once seen my person, and this is just to increase your desire for me, because the more you hanker for me, the more you will be freed from all material desires. By service of the absolute truth, even for a few days, the devotee attains firm and fixed intelligence in me Consequently, he goes on to become my associate in the transcendental world after giving up the present deplorable material worlds. Intelligence engaged in my devotion cannot be thwarted at any time, even at the time of creation, as well as at the time of annihilation. Your remembrance will continue by my mercy. Then, that supreme authority personified by sound and unseen by eyes, but most wonderful, stopped speaking. Feeling a sense of gratitude, I offer my obeisances unto him, bowing my head. And I'm going to read the purport from text 19. This is where Narada said, I desired to again see that transcendental form, but despite my attempts to concentrate upon the heart with eagerness to view the form again, I could not see him anymore. And thus dissatisfied, I was very much aggrieved. Purport. There's no mechanical process to see the form of the Lord. It completely depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. We cannot demand the Lord to be present before a vision, just as we cannot demand the sun to rise whenever we like. The sun rises out of its own accord. So also the Lord is pleased to be present out of his causeless mercy. One should simply await the opportune moment and go on discharging his prescribed duty in devotional service of the Lord. Narad Muni thought that the Lord could be seen again by the same mechanical process which was successful in the first attempt. But in spite of his utmost endeavor, he could not make the second attempt successful. The Lord is completely independent of all obligations. He can simply be bound up by the tie of unalloyed devotion. Nor is he visible or perceivable by our material senses. When he pleases, being satisfied with a sincere attempt of devotional service, depending completely on the mercy of the Lord, then he may be seen out of his own accord. Om Ganatamiandasya Janan Anjana Shalakaya Chakshru Minitam Nina Tasmai Śrī Gurave Namaha Śrī Caitanya-caritāmṛta Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Jaya Śrī Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Śrī Advaita Gadadhar Śrī Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinda Hare Kṛṣṇa Hare Kṛṣṇa Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So, do you have a measurement? How many people now are watching? Is it 2 or 3 or 10 or 20 or 12?
About 10 here.
Okay, good.
10 here.
So it's an intimate group. Okay, good. It's nice to know. In communications, we always talk, you need to know who's in the audience. But with this, you never know who's in the audience, right? You can't, like, if you're going to go on some TV show, the first question is, who's the host and who's the audience? And then you have to speak accordingly. So it's good to know who's out there. So Hare Kṛṣṇa to those of you at home who are watching, and perhaps some of you will also see you face to face later today. So this is such a beautiful part of the Bhagavatam, and it's giving very transcendental insights and also very practical insights. We know that a little bit of the background as Narada begins. We kind of started almost to the beginning of the story, but there's a little more description. He was living with his mother. Interesting, these days a lot of single mothers out there. So Narad Muni's mother was a single parent, as they say. And at one time, it describes during the rainy season, there were many sages, or describes Bhagavatas, great Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who stayed in that area. And his mother was serving them, and he was also serving them. He describes once he actually took the remnants of their food, so he was hearing from them, he was associating with them. So he became somewhat, at least educated in devotional service, in bhakti, and understanding the Lord. And then when this calamity came, that his mother was bitten by a poisonous snake and she died, even though he was only 5. How old are you boys? You're 13 and 11. So he was half your age and about a third of your age. Or if you put the two of you together, he was like 1/5 of you combined in terms of years. So he was, a pretty little guy. and his mother died. And we can imagine most of us would be completely overwhelmed, even as adults, when someone dear to you passes away. It's very difficult. Sometimes even as adults, when your parents pass away, maybe you're 50, they're 80, it's traumatic. So he's 5. It doesn't give a lot of the details about, certainly he must have felt, great sadness and all of that, but it's a condensed version. So soon after that, he took this as, this is the will of the Lord. And so as he describes, I headed to the north. And kind of like the understanding, like India, right? The north means like the Himalayas and the starting point of the Ganga, and it's where all the rishis live. So he's understood from them, okay, go to the north. So, and despite these challenges, he realized, okay, this is a big, he had no father. Father was absent. There's no description of his father. And he lost his mother. So where's his shelter? But he's understood, my shelter is in God. It's in Krishna. So based on that, he went to the north. And it's also interesting because sometimes when I read this, I skip the particular places where he went because it makes it a little long. But today I read them all. He went through some beautiful places and he went through some kind of nasty places, right? Deep, dark forests where snakes and owls and jackals reside. And then also he saw beautiful lakes where were filled with lotus flowers, where were fit for the denizens of heaven. And he went through cities, metropolises is how Prabhupada translates metropolis. So big urban areas and rural areas and very mode of goodness places and very scary places. He went through all of these experiences, which I think is interesting also and interesting and symbolic for us. We go through different situations. We pass through our own forests with owls and jackals and snakes.
There's a lot of owls here. But they're not really scary.
These are peaceful owls. These are peaceful owls. The ones here are maybe not so peaceful. So we face, different forests that we go through in life. So what's interesting about this is that in one sense, it's this very profound transcendental experience of Narada where he directly sees Krishna and then hears Krishna, but also is very practical instructions for us because we also face similar challenges. Everyone in the world faces so many challenges. The Gita, Krishna himself says from the topmost planet down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. And sometimes, there's a perception in the modern world, well, if you're rich enough, or if you're famous enough, or if you have a big enough, house or 3 houses or 10 houses or 20 cars or, like that. I remember like the Fisher Mansion, the temple where these 2 exalted souls were affiliated with years ago. I think, if I remember, it was a 9-car garage he had.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. And today
8 or 9.
today it's
all
been
tiled inside.
Yeah, all tiled inside, beautiful, not just like poured cement and drywall, but beautiful dried because he
What
was.
about the coffins for his dogs?
Yeah, he had that too. Yeah, actually, there's another example. When Mr. Fisher, very wealthy man, his company somehow, General Motors, I don't know if they still say it, they used to say in all their cars, body by Fisher. So they would, remember that? So he was Lawrence Fisher, I guess the founder of Body by Fisher, fabulously wealthy, built this beautiful home that by Krishna's grace, now it's ISKCON temple. Prabhupada personally purchased it, toured the building. Prabhupada said every room is worth the price. That's a whole, maybe a wonderful little side story. I think they were asking, if I remember, $300,000. So Prabhupada was touring the house, $300,000. Prabhupada was saying every room was worth the price.
Actually, they're asking a little more, but we wanted treatment.
Yeah, well, initially they sat down to negotiate, and Prabhupada said, we're a religious institution. You should donate this to us. And the man was shocked. Prabhupada was expert in everything, right? If you're sick, he had some medicine. You had a toothache, he had some recommendation. You're a little bit Maya, he had a jar of gulab jamans for you to take advantage. He had some philosophical question, you can answer all those. Some practical question, dealing with businessmen. So, first thing you do is smash their, you should give it to us for free, right? So anything more than free, the man's doing well, right? Because boy, I got away, it wasn't for free. So he said like that, but then, so they negotiated, and by Ambrish Prabhu and Lekha Shrimanti's kindness, Lekha Shrimanti, they gave her a whole inheritance to put up for half of the building. So it's a beautiful building, but he had, such a degree of opulence that he had, but even there's misery, even in those situations, there's so much misery. You see today, people have so much opulence. When we were in the Middle East, someone was telling us that one of the crown princes of one of the Middle Eastern countries, he has so much money, and just, you have that much money, what do? You just do more and more extravagant things. So he was out driving over the sand dunes in one of his super expensive race cars, and he flipped over and he got crushed.
Oh.
We had experience. We were in the Bahamas for a retreat with Gorvani. He was chanting at some city yoga. There was some yoga group in the Bahamas. He was there. So we took a little bit of tour. It's right next to this huge hotel called Atlantis Hotel. So, it's like the playground of the rich. And they had one place there were two towers, hotel. Between the towers, there's like an arch section. It was maybe 3 or 4 stories high. So it looked like maybe itself, it was 40 or 50 like rooms. It was a huge place. I remember at the time they told us it rented for $28,000 a night. That was the cost for this. So the man that built this whole place, obviously you own the place where the wealthy, successful people come. You're pretty wealthy, successful yourself. But in the nature material world, it was so successful, he wanted to build another Atlantis in the Middle East, and it's still there. You fly through I think Kuwait, there's, this big advertising, go visit Atlantis. And so I remember speaking to one of the employees of somebody that said, he's such a successful man. So now he has 2, and they said, no, actually now he has none. I said, why does he have none? Well, he had 1, but the nature of material world is what? Are you satisfied with 1? Right? Like there used to be a potato chip ad, you can't just eat 1. I don't know if they still say that. So they understood the psychology, the material mind, you can't just eat 1. So he wasn't happy with 1 fantastic resort. He had to have 2. So he got a second one. The second one wasn't making very much money. So he lost the first one because the second one was losing so much money. And not only that, he was an older gentleman. He had a son in his 30s or maybe 40. And the son was out in the company helicopter or maybe private helicopter looking for some other real estate development. And as often happens with helicopters, the helicopter went down. So he lost his son and he lost his money. So one day he's fabulously wealthy, big movie star moguls and princes and princesses, coming to who lives in a place that's $28,000 a night, right? Those are people like kings, they travel with their whole entourage. He had such opulence, but then it was just taken away in a moment. So this is the nature of this material world Krishna describes. So all of us, whether we're big business magnates or very humble people, or highly educated, not so educated, the wealthy country, poor country, there's always difficulties. It's just the nature of this material world. There's always difficulties. And we all face different challenges. So as devotees, Narada is giving us this wonderful example that even if which means when we face different challenges in different problems, that these difficulties themselves, just like Narada, can be an impetus to make progress in our spiritual life. It's like Narada was faced with, again, think about it, 5 years old, you have no father, and your mother dies, and you're penniless, and obviously you're not very, very educated. It's like you go out of 5 and get a good job or something like that. So he had nothing, but he took this as an impetus from the Lord. And it's especially for devotees, this reminder is so important. There's always different inspirational gurus, and they're teaching people, take advantage of whatever situation comes your way, keep your enthusiasm up, don't let your guard down. But for devotees, we understand those same things, but in connection with Krishna. So when we look at Narada's example, he had association. He had association with spiritual teachers. So this was his very good fortune. And because of that, he developed some knowledge and some vision of what the real, more important things in life are. Then when these difficulties came upon him, he was able to take shelter of the spiritual instructions he'd been given, and basically really just search for God, to look for God. And when he did that, then the Lord helped him. So this is a key step when we endeavor to take shelter. So we have association of saintly persons. That gives us knowledge, that gives us a vision of what the real values and priorities are of life. And then when we face difficulties, it doesn't mean when we become a devotee, there won't be any more difficulties. Sometimes people think like that, go to church or the mosque or the synagogue, or become a Hare Kṛṣṇa, become a Vaishnava. My difficulties go away. They don't necessarily go away. They may be minimized, but they may be maximized a little bit. As Ramya was mentioning the other day, Krishna uses the material energy as a way for us to become spiritually inspired. But the difference is a materialistic person, oftentimes when they face dilemmas, they become depressed. And generally they'll take more shelter of material things. Now, a person who's a little pious, when they get some distress, described in the Gita, 4 reasons people come to Krishna. One of them is because of suffering. So pious people, when they have some difficulties, they go to Krishna. They go to God as they understand it. So Narad is giving an example of that. And here we see how when he did that, and similarly when we do that, Krishna actually reciprocates. And this is so wonderful because the Lord, he sat down to meditate. Krishna revealed himself, and he's overwhelmed with ecstasy by seeing the form of God. I mean, not a lot of people see the form of God in this world. He's overwhelmed by ecstasy. And then his meditation breaks because it's such a profound experience. It just kind of like shakes into his core. And then he's like, oh, that was wonderful. I want to do that again. So he sits down to try to meditate again and like, okay, where are you? You're not showing up this time. What's going on here? How come? What's wrong? And then Krishna is so kind that he speaks to him. The Lord speaks to him, says, actually, you're not worthy of seeing me. You're not, your heart's not pure yet. You don't really deserve to see me or to hear me. But just out of mercy for you, because I appreciate your effort, I showed myself to you, and now I'm speaking to you to give you a confirmation that I'm here to inspire you to continue on in your spiritual practice. So this is really revealing to us the nature of the Lord's mercy. And all of us, we all have, to one degree or the other, received some of that same mercy in various ways. Of course, in one sense, the Lord is giving us everything. We can't produce the air we breathe. We can't. We don't know how. Just like I mentioned, we had this wonderful prasadam breakfast. All I know is it tastes good, and that's it. And everything else Krishna takes care of. How many of us are sitting here thinking, okay, move that down the esophagus. Okay, now enter the upper categories of the stomach. Okay, acid number 1, time for you. Okay, acid number 2, come for you. Okay, this and that. Okay, it's not like that. So many things are happening mechanically. And sometimes it's described, people are so proud of their strength and their abilities. People say, can you show me God? But we can't even see the thing closest to our eye, right? You can't see your eyelid, right? You try to look up and it moves. You try to look down and everything turns dark. So what power do we have? We have very, very little power. So Krishna, he's very kind. He's providing all of these just necessities of life. And in addition to that, he's giving us the impetus, and he's giving us little reminders that he's there. And as mentioned a couple of times in the classes yesterday, Prabhupada explains, for every one step we take towards Krishna, he takes 10 steps towards us. So that's his kindness. So here we can see Narada, at first he thought, okay, I know how this works. I just demand it to happen again. I can will it. By my will, I can make the Lord appear again. But it didn't work like that. And then he realized that it's beyond my power. And then Krishna again, he spoke to him and said, but I'm here. And if you continue serving me, you will see me again. This is my promise. You'll attain me at the end. But this beautiful expression says, I regret. Kind of nice the way it says that. I regret you won't be able to see me again. I regret you won't be able to see me again. But you have the ability. If you continue this way, I guarantee you'll be successful. So this is also being taught to us through this section, that Krishna is independent. He's the controller. So we cannot force him. As Prabhupada says in the purport we read, there's no mechanical process to see the form of the Lord. It completely depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. We cannot demand the Lord to be present before a vision, just as we cannot demand the sun to rise whenever we like. So this is our Vaishnava understanding that Krishna is the supreme independent, and he's also our best friend. So he wants to appear. He wants us to be with him. He wants us to go back to Godhead. He wants to be able to manifest his full mercy for us. But unfortunately, we're distracted by other things. And the world's distracted by other things. And therefore, he doesn't directly appear and directly manifest, because our philosophy teaches is basically people don't want him there. You know, there's a story of the old woman who was carrying the heavy pack on her back, rice or stones or whatever she was carrying, very, very heavy load. She's struggling. And she slipped and she fell, and it fell off her back. And she's a pious lady, so she prayed, dear God, please help me, God, please help me, God. She was so distraught, please help. So Krishna appeared, God appeared. So, my dear woman, you called upon me. What do you want me to do? Well, Lord, you see this big heavy sack I was carrying. I slipped and fell. I can't pick it up. Could you please pick it up again and put it back on my back? Is that all you want? Yes, please. Okay, I can do that. Then he's gone. So she had a good chance. And she blew it, isn't it? So in a similar way, it's described, this human form of life is so rare. I don't know if this is in the Shastra, but I know it's a new devotee. They gave this example so many times. They would say that the chance of having an association of pure devotee is like you're in the water and there's some like those things they float down the rivers. What are they?
Seaweed?
No, the big balloons with the raft, like the raft with the hole in the middle. And then if you throw one of those in the ocean, you go down, you come up, with the chances of having association with the pure devotee of the Lord, it's like the chance of coming up in the middle of that.
Oh, a tube.
A tube, thank you, a tube, yes, a tube. So again, I don't remember where that is in the Shastra, but the illustrative point is a beneficial one. When you think of the 8,400,000 different species that can't benefit because they're in the lower form of life, and then how many human beings take up spiritual life. So the odds are probably a little similar to that. But that's just how fortunate we are to have the association of devotees, just as we see here with Narada. Because he had that association, it gave him a better opportunity. So by hearing about Krishna, his vision was changed, his understanding, the potential was there. Then when the difficulties came, he knew how to respond. So this is also our secret, that when, just like I've heard from some military people, it's a kind of a strong concept, but said among some, for the military, peace is the time between wars to get prepared. You know, it was like an ordinary citizen, like, oh gosh, that's a depressing thought. You know, for me, it's like peace is the good times, and when we're at war, it's like, oh, that's really unfortunate. But for a military person, no. The peace is the time you prepare for the next war. It's almost in a similar way, when we're young, when we're strong, when we're healthy, when the pressures of life may not be so great, now is the chance to really go deep in our spiritual life. And unfortunately, materialistic people, the materialistic mentality, it's okay, things are good, forget God. Who needs God? I'm on a roll, right? Everything's going great. You know, I got a good job. I got a good husband, a good wife. I got like kids. I got a house. I got to move my way up. Everything's great. And then when things go bad, they haven't. I mean, people will respond in different ways, but generally, if we haven't prepared ourselves when the time, just like the military person, it's like, okay, peace is here. There's no worry, but then the war comes, and now you're not prepared. So in a similar way, we know old age is coming. We know disease is coming. We know death is eventually going to be there. We don't know how long. So it's like, take advantage of the time that we have now. So this is the message. And Narad is such a wonderful example of that, because by this association, he really understood what the goal of his life was. So the more we hear about Krishna, the more we hear from the Shastras, the more our faith develops. And the more our faith develops, the more trust we have. And the more trust we have, the more Krishna will reciprocate with us. So there's some question came up the other day about reciprocation. Krishna says in the Gita, all of them, as they surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. So we make some endeavor, and Krishna reciprocate with that. And we can see that so many wonderful examples. I was, just thinking this morning of Draupadi, such a horrible situation. She's in the assembly. She's the only woman forcibly dragged into the assembly, surrounded by these big kshatriyas, who are described, they have the strength of elephants. Some of them have the strength of thousands of elephants, and they're trying to strip her in a public assembly. And she's trying to cover herself. And then she realizes, what can I do? I can't. She puts her, Govind, if you want to protect me, it's up to you, my Lord. And we know the story, unlimited saris. Even Dushasana, he was exhausted. Kept pulling sari after a big mountain of cloth, pulling and pulling and pulling, mountain of cloth. He was such a big, powerful Kshatriya. And then again, Arjuna, it's described. I mean, no one could defeat Bhishma. The Kauravas had, the odds were 11-7, right? 11 Akshahinis, right? For the Kauravas had 11, and the Pandavas had 7. Those aren't good odds, Just think the number 11, right? There's 11 players on a football team. So you can just imagine one, America loves their football. So you can just imagine big special Sunday night game, 11 men on one side, the other side gets 7. What chance, you cover the 7 guys, the other 4 run down the field. You just score. Then you get the ball, you got 7 guys against their 11. What chance? How are you going to block 11 people coming in? No chance. So that was the situation. And even, it's so many wonderful histories there of the Lord's pastime. Duryodhana, the whole thing, he and Arjuna at the same time approached Krishna to ask for his help. Arjuna sat at his feet, right? I think Duryodhana got there first.
No,
Arjuna got there. Duryodhana got, I think so. And Krishna was taking rest. So Duryodhana, being the humble man that he was, he sat right next to Krishna's head, right? And Arjuna came in, being the humble Vaishnava that he is. I was making fun of Duryodhana. He was not a humble man. He sat at the Lord's feet. So it's described, so Krishna's resting. So he opens his eyes and he sees Arjuna first. And he's very happy. And then he realizes, of course, he's all knowing, but this is pastime, that, there's another person there. So Duryodhana is also there. So he asked him, so what have you, how can I help you? Both come. And they said, we both are seeking your favor in the upcoming war. This is after they come back from being sent to the forest, and they're gathering the armies. So Krishna said, okay, well, you both asked me a favor. So Duryodhana says, well, I came first. And Krishna says, but I saw Arjuna first. So how do we divide this up? So it was like a real win-win. And I don't remember what happened exactly next, but Arjuna said, I think he said, okay, Duryodhana, you get the first try. You were here first, okay? He was probably a little pushy. Yeah, do you remember?
Krishna said since Arjuna was younger, he should give him the first wish, and told him to choose between Krishna and the Vaishnava warriors.
Okay. Yeah, the Vrishnis, right?
Yeah, Vishnu.
Yes. Yeah, so that's how it was divided up. Krishna said, okay, one of you can have me, but I won't fight. And the other one, I'll give you my army, a whole Akshahini. So was it Duryodhana that chose first? Do you remember?
No, Arjuna did.
Arjuna chose first, said, okay, I'll take you, Krishna, if you're not going to fight. And Duryodhana said, I got what I wanted. Okay, great. Send your army. Send them next week. Have them, send them by FedEx. Get them down there in a hurry. We're ready to go. So Arjuna knew, if I have Krishna's protection, then it doesn't matter what material situation I have. I'll be protected. So we see this theme throughout. Of course, the whole Gita is bringing us to this point of Krishna's explaining all the different pursuits that one can have, and Arjuna's in this horribly complex situation. At the end, Krishna says, look, just surrender to me and I'll take care of you. And the Bhagavatam, the graduate study of the Gita, is just history after history after history of great saintly persons and some not so saintly persons who either received the mercy or really messed up by misunderstanding Krishna's position. And again and again and again, he's saving the devotees. This is his leela, it's what he does. And we begin to understand more and more, as Prabhupada says so many times, the personality of Godhead. So we begin to understand God actually has a personality, and what is that personality? He's playful, and he loves his devotees, and he cares for his devotees, and he loves to rescue the devotees, and he's dramatic too. Sometimes like Ramir Prabhu, somebody didn't hear last night, maybe someone online didn't hear. He told this wonderful story. Can I retell it in brief form so that you correct? I want to tell your story. You correct me if it's wrong. So
Okay.
when I tell it next time, you're not here. So he was working in Detroit, and he had a devotee mentor that worked in the same company. And this devotee mentor went on to some other job. So he's thinking, how am I going to continue? This is what's been keeping me. And he was praying to Krishna. He was upset with Krishna. He went out for a walk because he was so distraught. And it was just, he said, concrete everywhere. But there were these few trees, like every 20 feet, the city planted a tree. They weren't very big. They were maybe only 10 feet high. But in this one tree, there was a bird's nest. And as he's walking by, the baby, he was calling, Krishna, help me, I'm distressed. And he heard this bird, chip, 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 so the same way, expressing this distress for his mother, who's nowhere. And then as birds do, the bird fell out of the nest as he's there, fell on the ground and kind of moved around awkwardly, and then flew away. And they even have that expression, isn't it? Like thrown out of the nest. I think that, I don't know if all the birds, if they let the babies leave them, sometimes they literally throw them out. It's like, okay, it's time for something more important for you. So he saw, okay, Krishna's, this baby bird has seems to be abandoned, but actually there's a whole plan to take care of him or her, the little bird, and she'll be fine.
Personally strong.
To be personally strong. Yeah, no matter what. And you'll fly. So then what a message. Imagine that. I asked him later, I said, are you sure you weren't just saying that it was kind of like that? Later you heard about a bird? He said, no, it was the day I was feeling like that. And Krishna sent this message. We had and just the dramatic part, I'll tell one personal story and then we'll open up for some discussion. I was in Radhadesh a few years ago for conferences, a global communications conference. And we had some people, there's this thing called anti-cult organizations. And they're very concerned about political organizations or religious organizations or social organizations that like exploit or abuse their people. And because this kind of like socially in the West, culturally, we're very different from them. And, we're what's sometimes described like a high demand religion. There's a lot of expectations. And because of that, there's a potential for people in leadership roles to misuse their power. And it's happened in our organization. So these people, ISKCON is one of the groups that they watched very carefully years ago. And I've been going to their conventions for years and making friends and kind of talking about things, the good things about us that they don't know, and apologizing for some of the mistakes we've made and explaining things we've done to fix things like that. So this one year in Radhadesh, for the first time ever, some of these anti-cult people were coming to the temple to make a presentation. We said, look, please come to talk to us. What is, how do you define a dangerous cult or community so that we can understand how to weed those things out if we have some of those tendencies, which are there in practically in every human effort. So this nice couple were coming. We had to jump through a few hoops, and anyway, they came, was okay. And the day they came, we kind of told all the devotees, be on your best behavior, because these people like a little suspicious and if you do anything strange, So like everybody knew, and it was like, make sure everything's clean, and they're going to stay in the guest house, and we had it all planned out. So they're running a little late. So we're sitting in the Radhadesh has its own restaurant. Any of you have been there? It's like all glass, and we're sitting there a little late. So they got the phone call. Yeah, they're like 5 minutes away. And just at that moment, out of the corner of my eye, I saw this really strange looking guy, kind of unkept, like, somebody you might see like homeless on the streets, is a little, not so mentally together. His shirt was half unbuttoned, and he had a set of beads. He was Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare. And he was like coming around the corner. I thought, oh no, those people see somebody like this, they're going to think that's what you do to people. So I thought, oh my God, gosh. So just as he's coming on the corner, I see their car coming in. I thought, oh no. So I said to somebody, get that guy out of here. I mean, I've never seen this. I go to Radhadesh a lot, and I've been there for a few days. I'd never seen this person before. So then I ran out. So I went up to kind of greet them, and I kind of like about this far away. I'm like, they roll the window down. Hey, Anuttama, nice to see you. I'm like blocking it. I'm like, as the guy's walking behind me, So it was like, okay, boy, we got through that one. So they came in and we took prasad, and they were in a good mood. And then we walked them to their room, to the outer door of the guest house. And here's your key. You're just down the hall. And they went to the room, and I went back with Mahaprabhu, who lives there, the European Director of Communications. And I went back to my guest room and, brushed my teeth and laid down. And all of a sudden, Anuttama. I said, what is it? Who's there? It's Mahaprabhu. I said, what's going on? I said, it's that guy. He attacked them. Like, oh no. So, throwing a dhoti and run over to the guest house. And they were back in the restaurant. Like there was a lady there named Malati, not the North American Malati, but devotee who managed her. So she was there like pacifying the two of them who were like really upset. So we're like, what happened? What happened? Well, we tried to get into our room, and we were locked out of our room. And this guy came down the stairs, and he had a knife in his hand and blah, 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 blah. And we ran over here to get safe. I thought, oh no. So this is a story about how Krishna is very dramatic, okay? Because the man was a little unstable. He had been to the temple before. He came the day that the devotee who manages the guest house took off. And there was a person there who didn't really know the rules. And although this person obviously was a little, kind of, potentially threatening to other people, they'd let him stay. So he actually was staying upstairs. And I remember all the details. So they tried to get in their room. This is like Radhadesh is one of the best organized, managed communities in ISKCON I've ever been. Everything works. But that night, the key didn't work. So they're in the hallway. The night that the person who manages the place is not there, they gave him a room upstairs. He came downstairs, and he didn't have a knife, but he was like kind of half dressed, half undressed. And like with belts, somehow, if you don't loop them in all the way, it can kind of stick out. So that, and these people are like a little concerned about just staying at a Christian temple to start with. That was the first in their profession to be so risky. And here this guy comes down, singing crazy, who knows, after dark, and they're locked out of their room, and they thought he had a knife. And that's when they kind of screamed and ran down the door. And, so we called the police, and the police came, and, he wasn't really supposed to be there. So they escorted him off the property. And I remember standing outside, and some devotee, because there's a window above the door. And this devotee up there yells down, he says, are you something about this person? He goes, yeah, he's moved in. He's saying he's got stuff everywhere. He took over like the whole third floor of the building. So all these kind of interesting things. And then, in the midst of it, it's like, Krishna, help, And then it was okay. We got them back in their room. They got a new lock. It's probably like 11 o'clock at night. And it's out in the country. It's like 8. Well, when the sun's up late. When it gets dark, there's no neon lights, there's no city, there's no taxi cabs. These people are stuck in a Hare Kṛṣṇa community with a madman with a knife. And I thought, they're just going to tell us, hey, thank you very much. But, officer, can we get a ride with you? As they're trying to get away. I thought it was over. But they stayed overnight. Everything was okay. They had a nice breakfast with us. They gave a nice presentation. And everything was fine. And I saw him a few years later, and I asked him, how was that experience? He said, no, yeah, no problem. Stuff happens like that. But I tell this story just because, soon after, just realized Krishna, it's like Krishna, that was like the meanest practical joke anyone has ever played on me, like very funny, And just realized I completely had the sense, Krishna's just playing with us, he's just playing with us. Whole thing's to get us like, Krishna, help here, because that was definitely Krishna, help. And just realizing how dependent we are on him, and also seeing he's so dramatic, I mean, the whole thing with Draupadi. I mean, what a drama. I mean, thousands of years later, people are still talking about it. He just could have had somebody say a few nasty things to her, but did this whole drama, in front of all these men, and she's completely, and her husbands who are supposed to be, the most powerful. She's got 5 husbands, and they can't do a thing because of the whole twist of fate. And then Krishna comes the last moment, protects. The whole time he's, as they say, got her covered, figuratively and literally. But that's just, he works like that. And so when we hear these stories, like, oh, Krishna's really cool. But like Rukmini, she has a group of devotees in mostly Puerto Rico and some other people. Every week on Wednesday night, she gives a Krishna book class to this group of people. And all these just amazing stories about Krishna's pastimes. And they're just wild, and they're fun, and they're funny, and they're exhilarating, and they're beautiful. And whatever, he's the all attractive person, whatever beautiful and attractive things we see here, as he describes, it's just a spark of his splendor. It's just a spark of his pastimes. It's a perverted reflection, probably uses that term. So as we hear these things more and more, then the more we hear, the more faith we develop in Krishna, then the more trust. Just like sometimes they have those things with maybe Ramia did some of those with corporations, or maybe out on the hospital, they do those kind of things. They take department heads out, and you have to walk. They put a blindfold on you, and you got to walk across. And people, okay, jump, and you got to trust your co-workers to grab you, and they do to build trust amongst people like that. So that's what Krishna's doing in part. I mean, ideally, he didn't want us to come in the first place, but now that we're here, it's like, as Prabhu said, I just read the other day again, he said, often this material is described as a prison house. These days, sadly, they lock people up and they just, keep them there for a long time. They have government contracts. It's terrible. But in principle, the prison house's only purpose is to reform you, is to realize, I shouldn't have done that. It's like sometimes with your kids, you got to say, okay, time out. I'm sure you guys are never mean to one another. But other kids sometimes are mean to them. Sometimes mommies or daddies, they got to say, okay, time out, go sit in your room. When you realize you should do better and you want to talk about it, then you come out, we'll work things out here. And if you want to, you can stay in your room for a long time, right? You can stay there for a long time. It's just like, hey, I'm getting hungry. Can I come out now? Well, yeah, you can. You come out anytime you want to. But what have you learned? I've learned I shouldn't hit my brother when he's looking the other way. When we're not, it's not fun. Okay, good. And you can change your behavior? Yes, I am. Okay, come on out. We didn't want to put you in that room, right? We didn't want to tell you to take a time out. Parents never want to tell their kids to take a time out, but sometimes it's like you have no choice. So because of our free will, we're kind of forcing Krishna sometimes to teach us lessons. So when we get those lessons, we should learn to see those as his mercy. Hare Kṛṣṇa and welcome. Nice to see you. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Hare Prabhu. Hare Kṛṣṇa. So maybe we'll stop there. And 10:30. Should we have some time for questions, or what would you advise?
Yes, George. I think you can take 1 or 2 questions.
Take some questions. Okay. Ramia Prabhu.
I know you're describing the situation with Narad Muni. Was trying to see Krishna again, and he performed his practices, but he wasn't seeing Krishna. And I'm wondering, you can kind of explain how it is. Like sometimes we're doing our sadhana and our bhakti, and it's a little bit mechanical. If we're hoping for some spontaneous result, that Krishna will come and be there and bless us. So how do we avoid that mechanical?
How do we avoid being mechanical? Yeah. Well, mechanical kind of means you're doing something, but as they say, your heart's not into it. We have a cardiologist here. When the cardiologist always should talk about the heart at least part of the time, right? If your heart's not into something, you do it kind of haphazard, but there's no real desire. You don't really care. There's no affection there. Your heart's not into it. So that's kind of mechanical. And it's just like sometimes, like you have all these, somebody had a birthday here, right? So you have like, whose birthday was it? Oh, that's from your birthday.
Oh, no. Sorry. Not the, sorry. I thought
So no, it says happy birthday.
His birthday is still
How long ago?
August and May.
August and May. That's
Oh,
You're so special. They leave the birthday balloons up even after that, months later.
In New York, we have one for my 4th birthday stuff.
Still there.
Fourth birthday.
No kidding. So when you're 94, you can just put a 9 in front of the 4. You can use the same balloons or whatever all over again. Yeah. So, like they say that, a gift, it's not so much the gift you receive, but the spirit behind it, right? And all the scriptures in the world, there's some biblical stories about, the widow who gives her widow's mite. I think it's kind of like a paisa, right? They don't even have paisa practically in India these days. They have no value, right? But in the past, yeah. So the widow, she gives her like paisa is more pleasing to the Lord than the very affluent person who gives so much. Because for him, he can do anything, but just, give $1,000, who cares? Whereas the widow was like, we were where we saw the beautiful church. I'm driving down in Savannah, Georgia, and there's this beautiful Catholic church. We took a tour, beautiful. We walked in, we thought, this is like Europe. It's so amazing. So they told us that there were hardly any Catholics in that part of the country. So we're asking, well, what happened? Was there like a few really rich people came? And they said, no, this was built by, Irish immigrants were initially lower class. They got, working people's jobs and no money. So this whole thing was built by the pennies get donated by the Irish workers. And there wasn't that many Irish people there. It was mostly different church, but they built this fantastic church. So you see, how pleasing is that people give whatever they can, they give with devotion, as opposed to someone who can give a lot but can't give so much. So your questions about mechanicals, the real question is, how do we train ourselves and develop making everything conscious? I mean, I notice, I give a simple example, right? The first level of conscious, anamoya, right? You're aware of your tongue, right? Like certain animals, it's just eating, that's all they do. So I know myself, sometimes I'll be sitting, taking prasad, and I'm just trying to satisfy my hunger, and I got stuff to do. And then sometimes I'll slow down and think, wait a minute, this is actually Krishna prasad. Krishna has tasted this, and it's his mercy, and he's nourishing me, and then you slow down, and the experience of the food completely changes, because you remember you connected as prasad. So you get rid of that mechanical part. So it takes regular effort to put our heart into it. So if I'm cooking, okay, I'm not just cooking because I'm in a hurry and the kids are coming home soon and we're supposed to go shopping. No, I'm cooking because it's for Krishna. So let me put my heart into it. And, I'm going to work. Okay, so you've got a wonderful profession, you're helping people, you're saving lives. That in itself is most auspicious. But when you're thinking, I'm going to work to please Krishna, you're the real enjoyer. And as I'm sure you've seen 100-fold, you save this patient. I can do my best effort, and this patient may not survive. Somebody else maybe doesn't do such a good effort, and that patient survives. So you're in control. So I'm going to offer everything to you. There's one story with Narad Muni in the early days, Brahmananda Prabhu, later Swami's brother, who devotees hadn't yet been trained by Prabhupada to pay obeisances, but they were starting to. And Narad Muni went and asked Prabhupada, I think still Swamiji in those days, said, Swamiji, the others are starting to bow down, but I don't really feel like it. Something like, is that okay? And Prabhupada said, even if you don't feel like it, if you do it, the feeling will come. So even if it's just mechanical, if we do our best, then the feeling will come over time. But also we should try our very best to do it with feeling. We should try to do whatever we can. Just like when we chant with our words, we chant with our ears, we chant with our fingers when we're touching the beads. So we should try to focus on that so it goes deep. So it's all connected with Krishna, as much as connected with Krishna, that our heart and our consciousness. So even doing it mechanically is helpful. There's so many stories in the Shastra, people just chanting Krishna's name with no devotion at all. And Ajamil is a classic example. He just chanted Narayan, trying to call out to his son. Still, the benefit was there. But as we progress in spiritual life and our Krishna bhakti, we should try to give more and more and more and give our hearts. So mechanical is okay in the beginning, but we should come to the point, we should try. And when just like if we're chanting, our mind wanders, we try to bring it back to Krishna. So the same way we're doing some service and maybe our mind is wandering, our heart's not into it, bring our heart back. And we keep trying to bring it back, and gradually that becomes the kind of the natural state. Is that okay, Answer? You want to add some things too? Please.
I've also heard that it's very important, helpful to associate with someone who is more advanced and they keep moving forward in the process of devotional service. It keeps us focused on that.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. Yeah, that the importance of association, especially with people that are more advanced, is very, very important. And of course, if we're understanding some of the first principles of Krishna consciousness, as it described, the disciples should always feel themselves a fool before the guru. So we should never think, oh, I know more than that. Oh, he's giving class. I'm not going to listen. I know everything he knows. Anything he says, I know twice what he knows. And then we stop the whole process. We should always think, what do I know? I don't know anything. I have no bhakti. I think along that line too, I remember living right in a devotee community. I lived in an ashram for 10 years, but the same with the larger community. There may be one of us who's really inspired with let's say with chanting kirtan, but maybe, they're not so neat and clean, okay? And somebody else is like really a wonderful service attitude, but they don't know the Shastra so well. And somebody else really knows the Shastra, but they mistreat the devotees. So we have a choice, okay? When we say, okay, this person, he knows the Shastra and he mistreats the devotees. I can mistreat the devotees like he does, right? This person is very good kirtan leader, but their house is a mess. So I can have a messy house like that, right? So like that. So what do we choose? Everyone, just by the nature of the world, is going to have some more highly developed spiritual or sattvic qualities, and it's going to have some things you're still working on more. So we should be like the honeybee who takes the sweetness everywhere we see it. So, oh, look, this person, okay, well, they're a little critical. That's all right. I want to learn how to have a taste for chanting the way they do. Well, this person doesn't have a very nice service attitude. Oh, but look how nice they keep their house and themselves, and everything is so clean inside and out. Let me try to be clean like them, etc. So we can see like that. Is that okay? Thanks. That was a great comment. Prabhu, you had a.
I think when Mataji has a question online.
Okay.
Maswati Mataji. So.
What's her name?
Maswati, the yesterday afternoon host. Maswati Mataji and
Basmati.
Prabhu.
Okay, Hare Kṛṣṇa.
So please ask your question.
Hi.
Hare Kṛṣṇa Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Kṛṣṇa, nice to see you again. Thank you for your wonderful chanting for us yesterday. Whenever we left, we had she chanted some beautiful Bengali prayers from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It was wonderful. Rukmini recorded it, sent it to Gaurvani. Rukmini sent your bhajan to Gaurvani.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Prabhuji, very nice class. Prabhuji, I have a question. It's a kind of different question. I saw in India one devotee. He's not a devotee, but he's a rich man, and he donates a lot to the temple, as well as he also feed poor people. But he has no interest in Krishna consciousness. So how will he will get the mercy of the Lord, Prabhuji, in eventually? Like, he is a good person, is a very rich, donating a lot to the temple, poor people, feeding poor people, very, very caring. But like, he doesn't go to the temple or has no interest on it. So what
How does he donate money to the temples if he doesn't go to the temples?
Like, people ask, and because he has a lot of money, like he is a rich businessman.
Okay, so he donates to the temples, but he doesn't go to the temples.
Yeah. So,
well, Ambarish, there's one video where Ambarish says Prabhupada told him that wherever you put your money, that's where your heart goes. Right? Probably ordinary expression Prabhupada quoted him. So on the one hand, if someone is like that, they're very busy. We know a lot of times people that are wealthy businessmen like that, they don't have a minute to spare because they're thinking, I got another deal, I got another investment, I got to manage this, manage that. But if they're pious, they give something to some good causes like that, and that's to their benefit. So we should, as far as them, we understand, Krishna will reciprocate with that. Krishna appreciates that. And if they get good association, they'll be able to take more serious spiritual life. But if they don't have such good association, that tendency to contribute, they could end up contributing to things that are very inauspicious. And they gained some bad karma from that. So we should think like with that wealthy person as well as anyone else, how can I help them have the opportunity to serve Krishna? We should think like that. It sounds like you're feeling are you feeling some compassion for this person, Mataji, or you wanted to build a temple and you'd like to engage them?
No, Prabhuji, I have this, like how, like Krishna will give him mercy, right? Someday he will realize, right, Prabhuji? Because he is doing good.
Yeah, he's doing, I mean, it describes in the Gita, and this is where we have to be very careful, that the three modes of material nature, they're constantly kind of at war with each other. They're struggling for dominance. So he may have a little bit of charitable giving, which sometimes described as the mode of goodness, sometimes the mode of passion. You can elevate that, and you can become more fixed in goodness, and you can engage in devotional service. But there's always the risk. There's always the risk. It's actually dangerous until you become a devotee. So we should look for opportunities to give those people a chance to donate to Krishna, and we should help cultivate it. So like say this particular person, he likes to give the temples. So we should encourage him to give to ISKCON temple, to bhakti, to Krishna consciousness. And by that giving, a connection is formed. Like Prabhupada said, where your money goes, that your heart goes there. And then it's also up to us in a very practical way to make sure that person feels appreciated and that they feel part of it. It's not like you gave to my temple. This is our temple. You gave $1, you're part of this temple, you're part of this community. This man, maybe he can give $1 million, but if he gives a $500, thank you very much, we're so grateful, and he'll feel that appreciation. And he'll want to come closer. Because the thing we always have to remember is in this lifetime, he's a rich, powerful man. Next lifetime, who knows what his position is? We don't know. We don't know what his position was last time. So we should try to, just like it describes one who has spiritual vision, they see, they see the Brahmana, they see the worker, they see the dog, they see the elephant, the dog eater, they see them the same. And what does that mean, the same? They see them all are devotees of Krishna, all have a connection with Krishna, all need Krishna. So that wealthy man, he needs Krishna as much as everybody else does. And oftentimes the really affluent people, sometimes they're the saddest people, because sometimes they're the most lonely people, because they never know, people actually like me or they just like my money. When you're really, really rich like that, people just chase you. Like big musicians, they're so popular, artists, but they never know who really is my friend. Isn't it right? You see that, you hear that, so many people, they're the top. People think, oh, I wish I could be like that. But then they're often very, very unhappy. So, is that okay, Mataji? Does that help?
Yes, Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you for explaining Hare Krishna.
So when he partners with you and your husband to build a big temple in Tampa, let me know, I'll come.
Probably I don't know him directly, but I know him by other friend. But I was just wondering to know, like.
Yeah. So we know. He's performing pious activities. He'll get good. He'll get good karma from that. But it's always mixed. And if he's a businessman in the modern world, he's no doubtedly doing some very impious things at the same time. So he needs the mercy if we can somehow help him. And of course, you can always pray for him. And devotees, we pray for the whole world. And you can pray to Krishna, give me an opportunity to engage him in your service. And maybe Krishna will give some chance to you like that. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
All right, well.
The Prabhupada has given wonderful purport in this to the same similar question in 12th chapter.
Can I hear you? You're speaking.
Yes.
Okay.
That those who can't directly be Krishna conscious, they can support those who are trying to be Krishna conscious, and then they'll also make progress.
Who's
12.11.
Who's bringing that up? Is that you or somebody online?
No, I just got reminded of that.
Yeah, that's a very important series of verses 12:8 through 12:12, I believe. Yeah, very important that Krishna says, you should just always think of me, but if you can't do that, practice bhakti. If you can't do that, then work for me. If you can't do that, then work in the results of your work. If you can't do that, then cultivate knowledge. So wherever people are, we can help them make that next step. And, ideally, we help them go directly to Krishna. But if they can't, we can encourage them to take that next step.
So I think it's 10:50 a.m. So we can pause the Bhagavatam class if it's okay.
Okay.
So thank you, dear devotees, for joining. Let's express our deepest gratitude to His Grace Anuttama Prabhu for such wonderful nectar and the story of Narad Muni and sharing so many lessons from this wonderful story. So we chant 3 times loudly to express our gratitude and love and devotion to His Grace Anuttama Prabhu. We're chanting 3 times. Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Purāṇ ki jai, Srimad ki jai, Prabhu ki jai, the grace of Rukmini Mataji ki jai, grace Ramya Prabhu ki jai, Ananta Mataji ki jai, Samavet Gaur Bhaktavind ki jai.
Now we take a break, we come back again.
Yes, so we'll take a 10-minute break and then come back again for the Ishtagoshti for the Tampa devotees. So please come back again. All the Tampa devotees, please come and join again after 10 minutes.